Hello to my online learners. We've been talking about what makes up life, and life is the smallest living thing of life is cells. But now we're going to go even smaller than cells and start looking at the chemistry inside the cells in terms of atoms, elements, and compounds. So as we go through this, I will be working with the elements. Oops, let me make myself smaller so you can see. I will be working with the atoms, elements, and ions note page, and I will also be going through the textbook starting on where it says, what are you made of? So, what are you made of? You are made of cells, but cells are made of even smaller things. They're made of matter. Now, you are matter if you are made of if you take up space and you have mass. So you know what? You matter. A little pun there for you. So matter is anything that that's made up of a chemical substance. And a chemical substance is something that has a unique composition. So we're going to look at the composition of matter. And we are going to look at elements and look all the way down to an atom. So when we're talking about elements and compounds, elements only have one type of atom and compounds have two or more different types of atoms. Now, back to the very basics. This is what is called the orbital model of the atom. Inside the center or the nucleus, you have your protons and your neutrons. Your protons are positive. Your neutrons are negative, and they make up the tight center inside. Then around the nucleus is the electrons, and the electrons are negative. And this becomes important because it's the interaction of the electrons that cause bonding. So we've got every atom is composed of a central nucleus. The nucleus is protons and neutrons, and around it is the electrons. So if we change the number of protons, we're going to change and create a different atom. If we change the number of neutrons, we have something called an isotope, and often those are radioactive. And then if we change the number of electrons, we will create something called a charged particle or an ion. So that is written down here and summarized here. When we look at elements, all the elements that have been discovered, and some have been created, are on the periodic table of the elements. You don't need to memorize the periodic table of the elements. You just need to understand that this is where all the elements of the world are. We're mainly going to look at carbon, hydrogen, which is over here, nitrogen, oxygen, phosphorus, and sulfur. Those are the main ones used in living things. Some of the others are what's called traces, and we'll look at iron, cobalt, and nickel. Okay, so that should be familiar from your Science 10. Okay, let's have a bit of a peek at our note sheet to see what we've covered. And you can fill it on your own or stop this video if you have to. We've talked about matter, which is anything that takes up space and has mass. A chemical is a substance is something that has a unique chemical property. An element is only one type of atom. An atom is the smallest unit of chemistry, made of protons, neutrons, and electrons. Then we talked about an isotope. An isotope is when you change the number of neutrons, and often isotopes are radioactive. And then an ion is what happens when you lose or gain electrons. And ions come to be important when you're bonding or interacting. So we looked at that. Okay, next, what's the difference between a compound and a molecule? That is our last little bit of this chapter. So when we look at compounds, compounds are two or more elements uniquely combined, and the smallest particle of compounds is called a molecule. And you can actually have molecules of elements too, but a molecule is just a mixture. So let's look at one of the most common molecules in our body and in the world, water. Water has one oxygen and two hydrogen, or H2O. Okay? It is a compound because it is two or more elements interacting with each other in a fixed proportion. And it is a molecule because it is a small group of molecules together, or atoms together. Okay, that's it for this part of the chapter. We will continue on with bonding on the next video. Here's some review questions, which I mentioned to later, so you can practice your subatomic particles. And that's it. So go through, practice your subatomic particles, and I'll see you in the next video.